Hi, everyone. So welcome to session 9. You just listened to the read aloud for chapter 9, and so let's get started with session 9. So I want you to imagine being a teacher and walking into a new school. First, you get a tour from a first grader. So think about what that might look like for the teacher. Then next, you get a tour from the principal. How do you think the tours might be different? Think about a first grader taking you through as a teacher through a school. They might show you like what they enjoy, like maybe the playground or the water bubbler, maybe their classroom. A principal taking you on a tour might show you different things, like maybe the office or where records are kept, maybe the teacher's room. Now I want you to pretend you are going to give a tour to a new student. So now you're the tour guide and someone new has come into the school and you're in charge of giving them a tour. I want you to think about how you and where you would go and what you would share with them. So think about what you as a fourth grader might share with a new student that comes in. So I'm thinking maybe your classroom, maybe the playground, maybe the gym because you enjoy your PE class, or maybe the art room or technology room. Some of these things that might be important. The cafeteria, definitely, right? Because it's important to have your lunch. So think about how you might take a student through. Now I want you to pretend that you are going to give a tour to a new student, but you are a bird and your nest is in the trees of the school. I want you to plan out where and what you would go and where you would go with them and what would you share with them. How are your tours different? Giving the tour as yourself was a lot easier because you know your own thoughts and emotions. You know your own perspective. Think about that word perspective. It's how you see things. Today, we're going to step into the shoes of what we call a minor character, imagining a perspective you have not considered before. So Anne-Marie is our main character. We're going to step into the shoes of one of the minor characters today. So today we will learn that minor characters are in a story for a reason. They, like the main character, help to carry the big message or big ideas of the story. One way to improve your interpretation of a story is to reread it. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go through and we're going to reread parts of chapter 9. Okay? So we're going to reread it trying to understand the point of view or the perspective of the minor character. And then we're going to try to revise our interpretation to include what we have learned. It is usually easy to understand the story from the perspective of the main character, and much harder to step into the shoes of another character. You can figure out whose perspective is represented by asking, from whose eyes do I see all the other characters? And whose thoughts do I especially hear and know about? Whose voice do we hear in Number the Stars? Think about whose voice that we hear most of the time when we're reading that story, when Miss LaFoe and I are reading it. The book is written in Anne-Marie's perspective, but there are other characters. A skilled reader can imagine other perspectives. So of course we're hearing from what Anne-Marie is saying. And she's probably easier to relate to at your age because she is your age. She's the same age as you. And so seeing this story through her eyes is how we've been looking at this. And so we're going to step back right now and we're going to look at it through, again, the perspective of one of the minor characters. So I want you, as you listen to this passage, step into Uncle Henrik's shoes to imagine we are him. So I want you to think about him as we read this. How is he feeling? What is he seeing? How is he seeing the world right now? Anne-Marie wandered into the barn where Uncle Henrik was milking Blossom. He was kneeling on the straw-covered floor beside the cow, his shoulder pressed against her heavy side. Anne-Marie leaned back against the ancient splintery wood of the barn wall and listened to the sharp rattling sound of the streams of milk as they hit the sides of the bucket. Uncle Henrik glanced over at her and smiled without pausing in the rhythm of milking. He didn't say anything. Through the barn windows, the pinkish light of the sunset fell in irregular shapes upon the stacked hay. Flecks of dust and straw floated there in the light. Uncle Henrik, Anne-Marie said suddenly, her voice cold. You are lying to me. You and Mama both. His strong hands continued, deftly pressing like a pulse against the cow. The steady streams of milk still came. He looked at her again, his deep blue eyes kind and questioning. You are angry, he said. Yes, Mama had never lied to me before, never. But I know there is no great Aunt Bert. I can't say her name. Bert. Never once in all the stories I've heard, in all the pictures I've seen, there has not been a great Aunt Bert. Uncle Henrik sighed. At last he turned to Anne-Marie as he wiped his own hands with the cloth. How brave you are, little Anne-Marie, he said suddenly. So I want you to, we're going to continue practicing thinking about Uncle Henrik's thoughts. So let us continue. She was startled and dismayed. It was a question she did not want to be asked. When she asked it of herself, she didn't like her own answer. Not very, she confessed, looking at the floor of the barn. I want you to think about right now, what is Uncle Henrik thinking? I want you to pretend that you are him and think about what he's thinking right now. I want you to think about everything that we do know about Uncle Henrik in order to imagine what his thoughts are. Take into consideration maybe his age, his job, and his relationship with Anne-Marie. Think about. Okay. So tall Uncle Henrik knelt before her so that his face was level with hers. I think that that's not true, Uncle Henrik said. I think that you are like your mama and like your papa and like me, frightened but determined. And if the time came to be brave, I'm quite sure you would be very, very brave. Okay? I want you to think about why he thinks this of her. But he added, it is much easier to be brave if you don't know everything. And so your mama does not know everything, and neither do I. We only know what we need to know. Do you understand what I'm saying? He asked, looking into her eyes. Think about what he's thinking. Okay, so we've said that the theme of this text is that the war was making Anne-Marie grow up fast, and she had to be very brave. Okay, that's the theme. Okay, we're looking at it from her perspective. But when we take into account the minor characters, our thinking will expand. So I want you to think about how does our interpretation change based on the information now that we've got when we stepped into Uncle Henrik's shoes. Okay. So with that, I'm thinking that he's thinking, and I'm going to help you guys. If you're thinking this, great. If not, maybe you can see after I say that he probably has changed her life by telling her this information. He didn't really have a choice because the war has taken his choices away. So now he has to share with her information that he would never tell her otherwise, just to protect her. Just like Mama's lying to her, he doesn't want to give her any information more than she needs to know because she might be afraid. And so Uncle Henrik is holding back. But now he feels the need to do that. And his choice was taken away because of that war. He feels that he needs to be honest with her right now. And that little bit of information he gives to her might help. Okay? So today we did two important kinds of work. I want you to think about what we learned, that we can expand our thinking by attending to the experiences and perspectives of those minor characters. We also learned about analyzing perspectives as we read. So Uncle Henrik's perspective did provide more evidence to support that the war makes Anne-Marie grow up faster, and it forces her to be brave. So even though our theme is through Anne-Marie's eyes that she's growing up faster because of this war, it's even the minor characters are even supporting that theme. Would he have otherwise have said this information to her? Probably not. But this war is forcing him to have to say these things to her. And so through his eyes as a minor character, he thinks she is pretty brave, I'm going to bet, because he did give her some of this information. Okay? So make sure that you pause and see what new thinking you've come to, and think about whether attending to those minor characters has given you new insights. So as you're reading your historical fiction books, I want you to not only look at your main character, but look at those minor characters that are in those books. They're very important, and they're in there for a reason. They're there to give what their perspective or their point of view is to the story and to your theme. I hope you enjoy reading today, or I think you're not reading today. I think you're going to be reading tomorrow. So wherever you pick up, if you want to continue reading today, go right ahead, but it's not required today. But please remember about those minor characters as you continue to read your historical fiction books. All right, my friends, I will see you soon. Enjoy your day.